Why do people hate us so much?
What's going on?
I am just rewriting Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
Why?
Well, I thought we should do it as Will originally intended.
What's the play?
Romeo and Juliet.
Did you know about this?
They're talking about boys who do it with girls.
Ew.
You know what? That's the right idea, son. We don't want to see you end up like those kids from the university.
Peter.
What kids?
Can you give me some comment on what happened here tonight?
They did as God commanded them to do. Now, are you going to disappoint God today, or are you going to go do his work?
Is there something you want to talk about?
So this film feels like it's set in kind of a Twilight Zone-esque alternate reality thing. But I mean, it's still so powerful. Once you're watching it, you know this is easily what's happening to us, except reversed. So was there any pressure in creating this story?
It's funny that you say Twilight Zone, because that's exactly what I did not, what I aimed not to happen with this movie. I think with the Twilight Zone depiction of this gay world where, you know, you would think of a gay world, it's rainbows in the sky and everyone walking around singing Broadway show tunes, people are easily to discount the power of the inversion, and that's actually how it's been done before. My take on it is to create a very relatable world with a few small conceits. That's free of stereotype and stigma. And I think, you know, the gay population does not look like what is thought of as gay, and it's important to showcase that. So if you notice in the film, it is not, you know, people walking around flamboyant. There is no, you know, butch femme dynamics. It is very relatable to our modern day society.
Yeah, you still use terms like, you know, gay, faggot, all the derogatory terms. So what was your decision in using them?
So when I created this inversion, I sat down with my co-writer, David Tillman, and we sat down at this board, and we actually mapped out what we felt would still be the same and what would be different. And for all of the words or derogatory words that are used against the gay community, I looked back at their origin. I found out, where did they come from? And for the most part, a lot of them just mean a weaker person. And so those ones kept, but the ones that actually mean like to be with one sex, they did not keep. And so then we created our own, like row, you know, and breeder, which is kind of used in the gay community anyway. But in doing so and kind of like keeping those, it actually calls attention much, much more to the names themselves. And when heterosexuals watch this film, they feel it much, much more. That's a comment that we've gotten across the board at all of our screenings. The power of using those words and keeping them relevant, but, you know, infusing a few others.
Yeah, skewing it so they could see it from their point of view,
right?
If they were to be called that.
Right. It's like a very fine line when you flip the script, so to speak. You know, if you flip it too much, people will say, "Oh, that's someone else. That happens to someone else." Much like it's like I read. It's like cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
Where people think, "Oh, that poor thing that happened. Someone should fix that."
That'll never happen to me.
Right.
Kind of thing.
And so, like, the reality of the situation is that even now, like, a lot of nonprofits are founded because of these things that have happened. For example, the Matthew Shepard Foundation was created by his mother. So was the Tyler Clemente Foundation. That is because what has happened to a loved one, where they were able to feel what happened and actually try and take action. What my film does is it enables everyone to feel what it would be like, and so immediately they want to take action. The results have been very transformative and super amazing.
So how did you decide what gender roles and what gender characteristics to flip and which to keep?
I didn't flip gender roles at all, actually. I actually just made it equal. So where women are playing football, men are playing football. Where you see a man in a preacher's role, you're also going to see a woman. It's just even. The protagonists happen to be centered around that. But if you watch it, you'll see, like, for example, Jude, our protagonist, is star quarterback of the university. Bill, our main antagonist, is star quarterback of the male team. He happens to not be good. And that's like a little bit of like a stab to him once they, you know, get their love affair going on. Also, like with the Reverend, you'll see the Reverend, who's a female. However, in the end, there's a scene where you see a male preacher. So I made sure to keep it very even. Although they're not like key characters, that's the world. I just feel like if there's a men's football team, why isn't there a female football team? I would watch that. Wouldn't you? Yeah. Hey, so here we go.
So is there a specific person that you base some of the characters around, like the Reverend Rachel and like Brian Morris?
Yep. Everything that you see in the film is based on true events. I actually did not make one thing up except to invert it. Obviously, creative and artistic liberties were taken with each story because since they are major stories that have happened in press, it's a very fine line to, and so everything in the film is based on, for example, the sermons are directly taken from actual sermons that are preached in the United States today. The story of Ryan is Matthew Shepard, Jude is Tyler Clemente. The text messages that Emily sees are actual text messages that kids have gotten before they went and committed suicide. Like, it is kept very close to reality so that I ultimately and the people that are supporting this film have a speaking tool into which people cannot discount, because society is very quick to say that happens to someone else. Yeah. And it's time to start feeling that pain.
So the true events that they're inspired on, were any very personal to you or the co-writer?
Yes. Actually, when I came up with the concept for the film, which has been done before in a comedic sense, I knew that I wanted to keep it as close to home as possible. So I knew I wanted a co-writer that had experience in this. I was bullied, but not to the extent my co-writer David Tillman was. He was chased down by a group of kids when he was a young child, and they grabbed him and wrote faggot in Sharpie on his head, and he had to go home to his parents. Now, his parents had a very, very different response than what is depicted in the film, but that's for another movie. Yeah. This one is a bit more relatable to mainstream audiences. People often ask, why is your film, why does it make me feel so much? Why is it so graphic? And I say, it's actually not that graphic compared to what real people have gone through. Yeah. And a lot of the graphicness that you see is actually implied. So I'm using the elements of cinema to invoke emotion. So as far as violence is concerned, you're barely seeing someone get hit in the stomach. What's really making you feel is the sound design and the rapid cutting and the frenzy of such, and then putting your own personal emotions into it. Right. Yeah. The film is super emotional for me. I was going through a breakup at the time that the film got greenlit, and so instead of dealing with that breakup, I put it really
channeled
into
it
that.
Into the
I
film.
did.
Yeah.
I was like, everything with this movie. So
you could feel the deep emotions in there every single moment.
Thank you.
So you talk about in the film, by showing the reverend and the following and the preaching, just like the religious effect on society.
Absolutely.
Do you think that's the biggest deterrent for equal rights?
Absolutely. Every single equality conversation I've had or witnessed, at the end of the day, you can argue the human side of it, but ultimately they will always default to the Bible, and they say, well, God just said it's not. It's not. God doesn't say that. In fact, I'm traveling with a reverend that completely echoes my sentiment on that. She is actually the former reverend of the AME Church from South Carolina, which was also the victim of an unfortunate hate crime about a year ago where 9 people were shot as they prayed. And she truly sees this film as the allegory that it is to all discrimination. It's not necessarily gay. No. It can be based on your gender, your race, your age, your sex, or
even perceived homosexuality.
Right. And this, I chose love ultimately because it transcends every single language, and everyone can identify with love. And so that's ultimately what I'm trying to do with this film, is to create that empathy through a universal language.
So what do you think needs to change we had marriage equality passed, but that doesn't change anything. People are still committing hate crimes. People are still, basically with their prejudices. So what do you think needs to change?
The answer is very simple. Right now, our society is sympathetic. We say, oh, that's so too bad that happened to that gay kid, or that's too bad that happened. Something needs to change. Someone should fix it. We need to feel fueled as a society to go out and make that change, much like the mothers of Matthew Shepard and Tyler Clemente. We need to feel that pain in order to feel motivated enough to go and do that. You know, this film being based on true events, it really does wake people up. So much so that I did, aside from the short film going viral across the internet and going to like millions and millions of people virtually overnight, you know, it was scary to like launch this feature film and hope that it could match that of the short. And after the very first screening, a woman came to me the very next day, and she's like, "Are you Rocco Shields?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "You brought my mother back to me. She saw your film last night for its world premiere, and today she called me for the first time in 20 years. We haven't talked because I'm a lesbian. And now she understands what it's like to be me." To me, that was reaffirmation, and that is just one of the many transformational experience that happens in this film, because this film speaks to everyone, regardless of who you are or who you love. This is not an LGBT film. It is made by the LGBT community in order to express the bigger picture to maybe people that would not understand. And that's why we're releasing it the way we are, so that people, kids especially, will show this to their parents on Thanksgiving Day.
This is happening under our roof. There's always going to be boys.
Forgive me, Reverend, for I've sinned.
For every one verse about God's grace and love and mercy, compassion, there are also 2 verses about God's vengeance and his wrath and his hatred of sinners.
We are doing